to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tom, would you take roll, please?
I surely will. Chairman Fox?
Here.
Vice Chairman Mitchell? Absent. Secretary Murphy is here. Trustee McMullen?
Here.
Commissioner Grissom?
Here.
Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
And Commissioner Ekman.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. Item 4, approval of our agenda.
So moved.
Support?
Motion from McMullen, second from Murphy. Are there any changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Approval of meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 25th, 2023.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion from Grissom, second from Ekman. Any changes to those minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Call to the public. We have none, unless you'd like to speak on something other than your item. You're all good? Okay. All right, we'll close the call to the public. Tonight's agenda item is a public hearing. And in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. The way we're going to run the meeting is I'll open the agenda of the public hearing. We'll turn the meeting over to our planning director. He'll introduce the project. If you guys would like to come forward at that point and make any additional comments or statements that you feel are necessary or you would like to say regarding your application, then we'll, if someone shows, we'll allow them that opportunity to add their comments. We'll close the public hearing. Then we're going to take a look at that staff review letter that we all have in our packets and hopefully you have a copy of. Okay, so item 7A, this is a public hearing, as I had mentioned, and we're going to open the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. for the applicant Mark Frago. The property is located at 8457 Highland Road, tax ID number 470819-300-020. The property is zoned PD Plan Development. The applicant is requesting approval to establish a daycare center and amend the plan development agreement as outlined in the staff memorandum dated June 15th, 2023. And just for the record, all the public notice requirements for this public hearing have been met. So I've done my part. Now we'll turn the meeting over to Troy.
Thank you. Let me start off by explaining where this is at. This is a zoning map of Heartland Township, and if you started at the intersection of US 23 and M59, you would go west on M59, very close to our western limits. This is the original property. You can see it's in a white with a crosshatch configuration. It was developed as a PD, and actually it was in two separate PDs. The first PD was the church. Now it is known as Grumlaw Church. At the time it might have been Venture Church or River Venture Church. I might not have that correct, but this is the area that we're talking about. It's right here. And what they are proposing to do, I'm just going to go with our map aerial of this property to help. So this is an aerial map. This is M59 down to the, in this location, just south of the church. Hacker Road, which would also represent the western limits of Heartland Township. And you can see the church property here, and then the second PD, which is this residential subdivision, Walnut Ridge, is just to the north. So this is the property that we're talking about, and what the applicant is requesting, it's somewhat two requests. The first one, the one that kind of triggered this, is they want to put inside of their existing facility a child care operation, and as part of that, this corner, what I'm calling a corner, they would fence this area off, and that would be an outdoor play area for the children, but all of the everything they need is already existing in the church building. So there's, other than this fence area, there really wouldn't be any external changes to that. What triggered the other elements of this request was during the site plan review committee meeting that we had with them, there were some discussions on some of the outstanding items from the original plan development for this church and where they stood with those. And as such, one of them is a pathway that was required along M59 that hasn't been built, and they're requesting to eliminate that from the plan development requirement. So that's an amendment to the PD, of their original PD. And then another one is a site plan modification. They have a slightly different drainage, stormwater runoff management plan here. They didn't do curb and gutter on all of the edges of the parking lot, and as such, they were required to install throughout some of this. It's almost like a rain garden, a certain amount of landscape plant species in there to act as a filter for that stormwater. And it never really took off very well, and when they maintain their areas with mowing, it just has kind of never really developed. And they got some letters from their engineer, as well as the township engineer, as well as the drain commissioner, saying it seems to be working just fine as is. So that's more of a site plan amendment that they're also seeking. So that's the request, and I'll be available to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you, Troy. Anything you want to add at this time? Yep, sure, come on up, introduce yourself and anything you'd like to tell us.
Sure. I guess I'll start off. My name is Mark Frago. I'm the operations director for Grumlaw Church, and this is Sue Seacrest. She's the executive director for the church, and she'll be talking about the daycare. And I guess I'll just kind of briefly address the bioswale for the drainage. Since they did a great design of it, and one of the things that we've been there almost 10 years now, and one of the things that happens is to the north, the drainage seems to flow stronger, so there's always moisture in it. To the south, most of the time it's dry, and so because it was dry and with cutting the grass clippings would go into the bioswale, and so grass started growing. The check dams that are there are still there, they're still operating, they're functional, and so the guys just started cutting it, and so it's just, like the engineer letter said, it's functioning properly, and aesthetically wise, it looks like part of the landscape, and so we're asking to have that area not have to leave the way it is.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think just the request for the daycare, we, just to give you a little bit of background, as we said, we have, and as we submitted, with full operation, we have enough space to accommodate 112 kids. If we are full in our children's area, obviously we use that area for Sunday mornings. But the rest of the week, except for 1 week during the summer when we do a kids camp, that sits empty. And so we had started talking about what could we do. It's it's a shame that sits empty, and is there a way to serve our community? And then we were made aware that the state of Michigan actually, the statistics are that 50% of communities in Michigan are lacking childcare. And so the state of Michigan is actually pursuing, and they have grant money available to start 500 daycares per year over the next 2 years. So they're actually looking to start 1,000 daycares this year, and or by the end of 2024. So that's how this whole thing started. And I think as was already mentioned, we have a fence that will go in, and other than that, I know there was some questions about parking. There's plenty of parking. We have 19 employees right now who are in the building. We're all there on Mondays. And the rest of the week, there's about an average of 5 staff there per day. If we go the full 112 kids, we would have about 25 additional employees, part-time and full-time. And when the kids come in, the parents will actually park and bring them in the building, so there will not be any risk to back up on M59 or through the parking lot. They won't all come in at the same time. And so that's basically what we're asking for.
Great, thank you.
I think I probably should address the pathway too, just in case.
That's fine,
there's
sure.
Questions. And with this, we've held off primarily because of the cost to install that, but also there's no connecting, people will walk around our parking lot and they'll walk the path, but nobody really goes any further than the parking lot. And where this pathway would be to the west is wetlands, which means we would have to put a wood boardwalk in, and that's going to require maintenance, and all I foresee is that being a liability. And when you've got the number of kids that we've got that come to the church, that's just, they're going to gravitate out there, and it only takes one time for somebody to fall off of a boardwalk, and which would be a liability. And then going to the east, Heartland Estates has, there's no access point there. It would just stop. So you basically would walk the face of our the width of the property, and that would be the extent of it. In Heartland Estates, as you go to the east further, the grade goes such where it would not really even, you would really have to engineer drastically to have a walking path in there. So, we've just said, we call it a pathway to nowhere, and, so we're just looking, because there isn't any connector. If there was, then, we would be asking for it.
Okay, so very good. We'll get there in a minute.
Okay.
We'll just get there. Okay, anything you'd like to add? That's it? We're good? Okay, why don't you stay right there? Just let the record show we have no public, so we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, besides all of us here, at 7:13 p.m. And now what we're going to do is take a look at that staff review letter. That, do you have copies of it? Was the letter dated June 13th or 15th?
I think this,
That one?
yep.
Right,
Yeah, we can-
right. There's probably an extra copy on the table there if you'd like to grab it. There are 2 page numbers on that. The upper left-hand page number, we're going to begin on page 5. If you've got a copy with a page number in the lower right corner, that would be 10, but you could ignore that. But upper left page number 5, down about halfway, we see special land use review, general standards. So there's a couple things we take a look at. The reason we're here tonight is because of the special use, and then, of course, the amendment to the PD that you're asking to take place. So with the special use, we've got some general standards that we take a look at, and then we're going to take a look at some specific ones for daycare, and then we'll take a look at the site plan, which for the most part is just the parking question, and then we'll talk about the PD changes that you'd like.
Okay.
So if we begin there on page 5, about halfway down, special land use review, general standards, there are 6 items we take a look at. And as noted in the letter, you did reply to those in a letter back to the township. Everyone should have had that on their table this evening. The second page did not get attached in the email if you took it off the website. Are there any questions or comments for the applicants or concerns with that? Their responses? Everybody pretty much good with that? Okay. Then let's move on over to page 6, right up at the top. Then we talk about a little special land use specific to what you want to do. So applicable site standards, there's 9 items there. I'll read them real quick. If anybody would like to discuss any of them, just go ahead and stop me. The first one is licensing. Let the record show that it will be licensed with the state of Michigan. Setbacks are being met because we're using an existing facility that, of course, isn't a PD, but the setbacks for that site are met. Location does not pertain to child care centers. That's pretty much when we're looking at group daycare homes, facilities. Fencing, they are proposing the fence in the area that Troy described. Anybody have questions or comments on that? Everybody good with the picture that was in the brochure, or in the meeting packet? Okay. Item 5, the property, we all know that it's pretty much taken care of. You guys do a nice job over there. The hours of operation are noted 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Parking, we'll kind of touch on that in the site plan review, but I think we've probably already had enough conversation, but we'll see. Compliance, not applicable, that's only for the family and group home areas. And then the other is that this is in a plan development, so the regulations there do not apply. So does anybody have any questions or comments on that section? If not, let's move on to the site plan review portion. And really here, the item is parking. So everyone takes a note, any comments on it, but it does certainly make sense. The church, for the most part, uses that for services on the weekends. The daycare's open during the week, and even if you had evening activities, the daycare's closed.
Yep.
So I think we're probably all comfortable with that. Probably the next section, which would be on the top of page 8, review of the request to amend the plan development, would be best covered by Troy. So why don't we hand this section over to you, Troy?
Okay, so there were essentially 3 items that had to be done as part of this plan development. One of them was to install running or workout trails. I'm going to pull up a, this one doesn't do it very well. Okay, so this is a site plan for, at that time it was called Venture Church. So M59 would be at the bottom of this page. And then you can kind of see a little bit of this proposed fitness trail. It went all the way up and around. That is in, so we're not really talking about that one. So they've done that one. The next one is the storm detention. And with that one, I'm going to go over to the landscape plan, and I'll zoom in. Again, this is the church, M59 towards the bottom of the monitor. This is the main drive that comes in. There's also another drive here. So what I'm going to show you is what we're talking about. What I sometimes call these rain gardens. That might not be technically correct. Zoom in here. So you can see the parking lot. This would be curb and gutter, and then there's no curb and gutter for this portion, and then there's curb and gutter here. So that it's a sheet drain system that goes in, and then this dark area kind of represents the where they're trying to drain the water into almost like a little ditch system. And then this area here represents plantings that were supposed to go in, and this is the number of this particular plant. There's a legend, we could look up what that's supposed to be, but this is what we were talking about that just never got installed. It never really took off very well. And if you follow this, you'll see these are periodically throughout the site in various locations, and just over the 10 years that they just never have worked out, and so they're requesting to amend the site plan. It's not a condition of the PD, it's more or less just shown on the site plan. They're essentially saying it doesn't make any sense to install these. There's no you don't have an irrigation system in your storm detention basin, so they really don't do well there. And the system seems to be functioning as their engineer has said, and as the township engineer has said, and as the Drain Commission has also indicated. So they're essentially requesting just leave it as it is. So that's the second one. The third one is the pathway, and this one does require an actual amendment to the PD. So back to this site plan, again, this is the church, and I'm going to, nope, that's not the site plan I want to look at, I guess. Is this, nope, that's not the site plan. It's gotta be. Oh, yes, it is. I just missed it. Okay, so M59 at the bottom, church here. This gray would represent the 10-foot wide sidewalk, pathway, bicycle path. And then over in this portion, it's wetland. So what they have shown, you can see by these notes, that this portion is a 10-foot wide boardwalk, and then this section over here, all the way to the eastern property boundary, is a 10-foot wide sidewalk. And we've provided in your packet the actual language in the plan development that requires this. It's section, I think it was like section 2.13 of that plan development that requires it. When we met with this applicant in the site plan review committee, one of the things the site plan review committee asked is, why didn't we have, further to the west, you can kind of see it's all wetland, and it's zone CA. It's not likely we're going to be extending sewer into that area. It's not likely this is going to, at least in the near future, be developed where we would extend a pathway. But the question was, well, why didn't we have one here when this subdivision was done? Well, this whole subdivision, Heartland Estates, was effectively done in 2 phases, and the first phase was the eastern portion, and at that time, there was no requirement for a pathway. So that portion of it, that never came up. It was never required. When the western portion came up, the plans that were submitted actually did show a pathway. And the plans that they submitted also showed on a different sheet, this is a landscape berm with trees right in that. If you had taken the time to compare 2 plans, you either couldn't have one or the other. You couldn't do both. And just the way it appears to have been, it went through its approval, virtually no discussion on this once. So it's not like you can get a mountain of information, but it appears that this is the direction the township went with it, which was the landscape plan to require what you see right here, all these trees. So it appears it was never required at Heartland Estates. So it looks like what you would be doing is requiring, or the PD requires this applicant to build the pathway on their property where it would never connect to anything to the west, and the odds of it connecting to anything to the east are, it's not likely at this time, so they're requesting to just not be required to install that pathway per the PD and to amend that PD. So that's no longer required. And with that, I'll just leave it open for any questions or comments you might have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on any of the PD items?
I do.
Okay.
I think, and I could be wrong, but I think at one time 59 was supposed to be widened to Howell. And I think That was before my time here, but, and it was gonna be going on the north side of the road. So I think that's why, we see that berm that they have now, because that would have taken into effect that. I mean, my thought is, if the road ever gets widened, I think the bike path should be put in. But I don't think it should be put in at this time.
Well, and I was wondering the same thing, and yeah, because those discussions on the widening of 59 happened in the early years of my involvement here, and probably on some shelf in some engineer at MDOT's office is a plan that maybe someday they'll blow the dust off on and say, hey, what about that M59 project in Osceola and Heartland?
Right, and then with all the rooftops, I think we're gonna eventually need it.
Well, we could use it now.
Right.
I wonder, and when they came through and put the boulevard over there in whatever township that is, Howell Township down by Kroger and all that, they did that when they did the widening. I wonder if that can be a pursuit of the township at the time this happens. And MDOT would put the pathways in the whole stretch
Right.
of 59 and not put the burden on any, because I think when we look at Heartland Estates and that steep hill there, I mean, a lot of that's coming out. If there's going to be a boulevard put in there someday, I would imagine. So why put a sidewalk in that you don't know where it really should be? Because MDOT buys right away, and right away lines move, and
Right.
big projects. So I was in favor, once we got the Heartland Estates information and what I knew, of relieving them of this responsibility. Because I think right now it's just a waste of money. Number one, it can't be used now, and someday if it can be used, it might be in the wrong place.
Right.
So that was after we had met, that's what I had thought. So, anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thought was not so much on the sidewalk, it was about the path, and Mark, you had described it. Troy, can you show us where the path goes around, actually the property?
Yeah.
Does it look like it starts at the northwest corner of the parking lot? Because I'm tracing it myself, and I don't know, I'm just curious.
So I have to zoom out kind of far and you lose some of the detail here, but it somewhat kind of meanders its way up into, there's a property line. This plan this probably isn't the best plan to show what you're asking for, but there would be a common area in here somewhere where some of, like this portion falls on the Walnut Ridge Estates, and this portion here is part of the church's responsibility. I can't tell you where that line is. This plan does not show.
Can I speak to it?
Sure.
On the west side, going up, where it kind of, and then loops around, that's the path that we put in. That's with the loop, and that's exactly 1 mile. Then that leg right there that comes back down, that is what Walnut Ridge put as connecting from their subdivision to the path. And so that's also in.
Yeah. So it's it's a wood
Wood chip path.
wood chip
Wood chip.
path.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you. I was just curious about that, because I'm looking at and on the plan, and not Google, and on Google, I was just curious where it went, so thank you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Any,
Does it show up?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it's very close to what the plan is, at least visually.
Are there any comments or questions on any of that? The path, the drainage, and/or the sidewalk? Okay, then I think what we'll do is move to the top of page 10, and, we're going to make a recommendation to the board on this particular element, everything at the public hearing tonight, the PD and the special use. And then we really have no comments from any of our reviewing agencies in regards to much of this. So Are there any questions or comments at all for the applicant or Troy on this application? If not, we do have a motion, if you're so inclined, on page, the front cover page. If you're so inclined to go in that direction, remember, we just need to work with the bold type. So you don't have to read all of that, unless you want to. So,
Okay. I move to recommend approval of site plan with special land use application number 23-006, a request to establish a child care center and amend the plan development agreement as outlined in the staff memorandum dated June 15th, 2023.
Support?
okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Murphy. Is there any further discussion on this particular motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now, we need a second one for the site plan, which is located at the bottom of this particular page. Much less reading than the first.
Papers. So we just start with this approval. Approval of site plan with special land use application number 23-006 is subject to the following conditions. That's it?
That's good? Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Oh, okay. Don't fight over it now. A motion to approve site plan with special land use from Commissioner Grissom, a second from Commissioner Mayer. Is there any discussion on that part of the evening? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you for
Thank you.
growing in the community with us.
Thank you very
All right. Good luck at the board. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, since our only public is leaving, we will move on to planner's report.
I just wanted, one quick thing I wanted to bring to your attention. I don't do this probably as often as I should, just to highlight to you that there's some legislation proposed at the state level on gravel mining operations. There's currently a bill, and I don't remember the number, it's like 3 numbers, where they essentially would eliminate the local government review part of a gravel mining. So I've been spending a little time reading that and getting some information. The organization that I'm a member of, the Michigan chapter of the American Planning Association, is advocating we should get out and oppose this. I'm more or less in a position, I'm just trying to learn about this, so, but I thought I would at least share this with you. We do have a gravel mining operation in the township, and there is rumors of a potential second gravel mining in the extreme northeast portion of our township, and it may actually cross into the northern, the township immediately to the north. I can't confirm any of that because I don't have any access to property records in that township, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If anybody has any questions on it, feel free to reach out to me. I'll share with you what I know on that topic. That's about it.
Okay, any comments? Anybody tonight? Committee reports? Anything? Okay. We would need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Support?
That would be from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Ekman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you and have a great night.
I think Commissioner Grissom made 4